All right. We're back with episode 2 between the Tusks. Kris Boyd here with Brett Kincaid. Once again, Brett, appreciate you.
Yeah, happy to do it. We got a good amount to talk about this week.
Brett, when we were on last, you said if we win game 1 of the South Carolina series, and you pretty much guaranteed either winning the series or a sweep, and won the series, definitely won game 1. There was no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Was that the most runs we'd ever scored in the SEC game?
Yeah, I think it's the most in the SEC game. It's probably the most since 21. And it was just an onslaught. It was kind of like once you got to 15, it just was like kind of wondered, pick your number kind of deal. And you saw Dave start rotating different kids in towards the end because we knew it wasn't going to go past 7 innings. It was pretty academic after the 4th inning, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we even saw Carter get in there towards the end, and you even kind of said, we might see him as a defense replacement. I think
getting him on the field more and more. He pinch hit again on Sunday, too. I think he's just a guy. I think he's one of those freshman players that Dave wants to get into the rotation. You know what I mean?
Yep. And, he needs it. He's still the same kid.
Yeah.
He's still going to be good.
He's going to be good. He just needs at bats more regularly. It's harder to get a freshman to be a true pinch hitter. Just discipline and just being with it. He just needs to see more pitches. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the lineup tomorrow against UCA, and whether it be at a corner spot or at the DH position.
We were. I'm jumping around right now, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on UCA, but they did jump up and beat Vandy.
Yeah. They're it's a weird program. Like they had a really big high. I remember now it's been probably 10 years ago. They went to Starkville and won the first game in that regional, and then Mississippi State came back and knocked them out.
Sure.
On Sunday twice, Sunday and Monday. But they they kind of have been up and down, been down more than up. But now they're playing around 500 ball. They got smacked around a little bit by Oklahoma State, but they've beaten Oral Roberts. They've beaten Vanderbilt. And they're going to, like every other in-state team, they're going to be ready to,
100%.
take a big swing at the Hogs. I don't expect us to see anything less than their best on Tuesday.
And like we said, there's a whole lot of good college baseball in Arkansas right now.
Yeah, for real. It really is probably the best we've seen it at the D1 level.
Yeah, at all schools.
Yeah.
So going back to South Carolina, we hit on Ruiz, Brett, and his on-base percentage. You're a little more familiar with him at Lamar than I am. Did he show this type of power at Lamar?
No, the power is, it's not brand new, but it's just the type of power that we're seeing from him is remarkable. He's really, bat speed is really impressive, and the exit velocity is the one that he hit off the batter's eye at South Carolina. It was 108, I think, off the bat. Went about 423, I think was the official reading on it. It was a monster shot. And then he turned around on one and yanked it into left field in his other home run. More than anything, though, Chris, he's just getting bat on the ball, and he's doing what he's supposed to do up top. He's getting on base. He's making life difficult for the opposing defense.
Maika Niu just continues to hit, and he's
coming on.
But for March Madness, he would have had a Sports Center top 10 catch as well.
No, he's coming on. It's interesting. He was an infielder before going to Cape, actually, and started transitioning at that point. Then his athleticism is just off the charts. So having him transition to center field full time in a place where, frankly, we are accustomed to putting out all SEC defenders at center field.
Great center fielders.
He's filling that role seamlessly right now.
So when you say at Cape, he's only been playing center field for a few years.
For
He looks like a natural center fielder.
Since last year. He was
mean,
he was an error machine at Marshall at shortstop, and so they moved him to the Cape over the summer. Maybe late. I can't remember if they did it late in the season at Marshall, but he played in center field for the Cape Cod League, and kind of again, it's just become his spot now.
Yeah, he looks like a natural center fielder. Also nice to see Souza swinging a nice bat and really laid down a crucial bunt for a hit on Saturday.
Yeah. We were talking about here at the house that it was just good to have Souza get bat to ball. He had one long foul ball that looked like a home run, but it just seeped foul to the right side. But then to lay into one and actually get over the wall, it was important for him because he's just been struggling so hard. And we talked last week about the defensive alignment, and really, I know we'd prefer to see Kozeal at second, but the more he plays there, the more comfortable he'll be at shortstop. And he's got to have Souza playing a solid second, and he's got to hit. And so getting him, hopefully, seeing the ball hit the bat a few times and then putting one over the boards, we're hopeful that that's what turns it on for him. It doesn't have to be great, but he needs to be a 300 hitter that's going to be a home run threat.
Obviously, Cam was Cam over the weekend. He's just been rock solid.
Yeah,
our best,
not his best by any stretch, but again, like you said, rock solid. He's reliable, right? That's what you want out of him, is to be a solid top of the order at bat, top of the order bat, and he's Mr. Reliable.
Stewart didn't have just the greatest of weekend, didn't necessarily need him with all the pop. I mean, the ball was flying out of the yard for both teams over the weekend. But Stewart is still somebody that UC will be that four hitter, no issues, right?
He had some good at bats. He hit the ball hard. Sometimes it happens. You hit the ball hard and it doesn't find a hole. It evens out. He's still he has locked down the right field position, which is really what Dave was hoping. Somebody goes and seizes the moment and takes over that role. And I mean, it's his to lose at this point. There's no question about that. And you want to be able to lock him in as your 5-hole every day.
Kuhio, people will learn just not to throw him fastballs at all. Absolutely crushed one. But again, if he's not seeing those fastballs, man,
he's fine. He's again, you'll take the swing and miss. His swing, we talked about this last week, his swing and miss rate is not as bad as we hear people chatter about. Because he swings so hard, it's almost like he swings twice on those off-speed pitches. Like he just swings so hard. But he's gonna make you throw the fastball for a strike, and if you cannot throw a competitive off-speed pitch, he's gonna hammer you, and he did it again this weekend.
I mean, I wanted to see the replay of that because I was like, when it left his bat, I went, did that one go over the trees out there? And went on the replay, I was like, yeah, that went over the trees. I mean, that was as hard of a home run as I think he's hit since he's been here.
Yeah, and I think so it's easy to lose sight of the whole weekend because the numbers on Friday were so gaudy. Put up 7 runs in 2 days after that, so it was not a great offensive showing for the Hogs, and but great grit on Saturday to get that win when we're dead to rights. Good throw, and that's game over.
And it's over.
And then South Carolina, credit to them, came off the mat pretty hard on Sunday and really jumped out. And it felt like they had a 6-run lead the whole game for some reason. Like it just felt bigger than it was, as if they were just willing themselves to win. And then, Fisher turns in another subpar performance. That's 3 in a row for a guy who was completely unhittable his first 3 starts, to now he hadn't survived the 5th inning in 3 straight weeks. And I think he got frustrated a little bit. He's getting squeezed a little, or at least thought he was. I think you go back and look, maybe the behind the plate umpire wasn't quite as bad as I thought in real time. But I'm wondering if we're going to see a switch this weekend.
Well, let's throw it up.
I think we've got, it's undeniable. Gack and Dietz you can't get much better than that in college baseball. Fisher was a midweek starter his freshman year, freshman All-American season, and looked to be a piece that could come in out of the bullpen, and then got hurt, and then of course missed all last year. So he's still building back up, and I'm wondering if we see Gibler switch to that Sunday slot.
It's interesting because you literally put a to be determined there on Fisher. It seems at this point, Gabe is just as solid as a Friday night starter as you can have. I almost feel like I jinxed Dietz on Saturday. I sent you a text. I said Dietz is dealing, and then I won't text you anymore about Dietz. Let's just say
let's just avoid that maybe on Saturdays. Thing is, though, he still looked great. I mean,
absolutely.
He had 12 punches. He was in command. We just didn't get enough runs. I mean, you get 5 runs that day, and all of a sudden the story is Dietz shutting down yet again in the SEC.
Yeah, Dietz is Dietz. And you're right. What do you think it is with Fisher? I mean, it's not like he's just seeing powerhouse offenses over his last 3 starts.
Mississippi State's offense is legit, and Mississippi State got to him early. Then he settled down. So, I'm not like panic mode on Fisher yet, but he's throwing too many pitches. He went in with a ridiculous, and this is where baseball and the gods of the sport demand that everything balances at some point. He had a 7-to-1 K to walk ratio entering the weekend. That's just, you can't do that in wiffle ball. And so for him to have some come back to the bean a little bit makes sense. But I think he's he doesn't have overpowering stuff. He's a pitcher. He really knows how to pitch. And if he's not getting a little bit on the outside edge, he maybe is not quite as good as he is when he's getting it. And that's could be said for almost every pitcher, but especially kind of your prototypical crafty lefty. It was a little harder than like a Jamie Moyer back for a lot of folks. Maybe not remember that, but I know you and I do, of a guy who, could barely break glass with his fastball, but he just knew how to pitch. Fisher's got a little better stuff than that, but that same type of approach of just, he's smart. He knows how to get guys out, and he takes advantage of what he's getting. If he's not getting anything, there's not much to take advantage of. So I think he needs to. I would like to see him, settle back in. He needs some short innings, and I'm wondering if there's just a book, and I'm sure, they will go look at it, and Knobs will figure it out. But there may be some sequencing that they need to change up with how he's throwing at the beginning of the game.
And I was messing around. I got jacked up with the slides here, but did I hear you correctly that they may throw You think they may throw Gibler on Sunday?
That's my thought. That was me talking, but I think it's possible. If you want to give Fisher another shot at home against an offense that's struggling like Florida, I think that I would 100% support that.
I actually do too. That might be the ticket.
Take them out to start the game if you're thinking that way, because we're home game at Baum. The next 2 weekends are on the road, so maybe better getting Gibler that comfort of starting at home. But I don't know. This is where the coaching staff really, their relationships with these kids, understanding of their temperaments and their psyches, will understand how to approach. analytically, you just say, well, maybe it's time to give Gibbler that slot on Sunday, but it may just be Fisher's just had some bad luck and they can figure it out and try to get right against Florida.
So let's say they do throw Gibbler this Sunday, or let's say they throw Fisher and don't feel comfortable, and then next weekend versus Auburn we see Gibbler on Sunday. Who does Dave and Hobbs go to on that second, to come in after Gabe, Gackle on the Friday?
Well, I think McElwain's certainly showing that he is as reliable as you can as anybody else in the bullpen. And I think you can throw Fisher back in there. Fisher's a great change of pace guy. I mean, if you got Gack throwing, sitting 93, 94, touching 96, 97 from the right side, then you bring in Fisher, who's going to top out at 92, but he's going to have everything. He's a left-handed pitcher. Everything's going to have a tail. You can really affect their lineup. Historically, Dave has liked to go righty-lefty or lefty-righty, depending on, who's, back in the Cop season, it was Wicklander, and then you bring in Cops. You go left-right. Then, in the other times last year or 2 years ago, we had, Hagan, and then you bring in Gabe. And then last year, kind of same thing with Root, and then you bring in Gabe. So, he'll mix and match, but I think just an abundance of left-handed pitchers right now, and they're all so dang good. You go with the best option. But I would think that McElwain may be the first guy because he's been doing it. First guy on a out of the bullpen, and then, or maybe you have a situation like last week where you put up 15 runs by the fourth inning, and you save your bullets for the rest of the weekend.
Speaking of, so just come off of a series with a team that was struggling, took care of it. Going to face another team this weekend that's really, really struggling. Tell us about Florida's Friday night pitcher Liam Peterson.
So Peterson, as you see here, he is very highly regarded. He's going to go early on the first day of the Major League Draft. Big kid. He is 6'6", 6'5", just pulled up, 6'5", hard-throwing right-handed pitcher. He got touched up for the first time this season in a real way at Alabama, while on the flip side, Tyler Fay was throwing a no-hitter for the Tide.
Yeah.
So stark contrast there, right? And, just sometimes things just snowball. He only had a couple walks, but he only had 4 strikeouts, which, is clearly underneath his average per 9. So short outing for him for his season, but he threw about 100 pitches in 5 innings work. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form Arkansas should expect a similar performance. I think Friday is going to be another one of those elite SEC Friday nights where you've got 2 first-round picks going up against each other.
And if you know who are Florida's top guys out of the bullpen? I mean, do you know offhand?
No, I mean they ran through a bunch of arms this weekend. I was looking at their box scores. And,
they had to, which is no. I mean, nobody saw that coming. Let's be frank. That was wild.
Right. I mean, Bama's really good, but they also
they
also got swept to open the season in conference play. So they were coming off a rough week. Their first out of the pen was Caden McDonald, who is, not on any of the major draft boards right now. He's pulling up his stats right now. He's a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, another big cat. But he is, he's a reliever by trade, so he'll probably be their first in. One note I did do when I was looking at that stuff this week. Liam Peterson and Hunter Dietz are same, and Gabe are all same class, and Peterson and Dietz grew up pitching against each other in Florida. So it would be cool if they were pitching against one another on Saturday, but yeah, these are all from the same draft class. All 3. I mean, Dietz is shooting up those boards. Baseball America will update their top 200, I think, on Wednesday of this week, and expect to see Dietz flying up those boards. He's got first round talent. He's got top half of the draft talent.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to talk about that whenever they drop that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That will be a big time classic SEC Friday night ace versus Friday night ace.
I expect it to be great. Looking forward to it. It's going to be, intense.
It's supposed to be great weather again.
Yeah, weather's going to be nice, a little cooler, but still not cold by any stretch. And it'll be a pretty electric night at Baum Stadium.
Well, I mean, I would hope be a little cooler versus 94 degrees in Fayetteville in March again. That was
yeah.
Tell us about. I mean, this. I don't know much about Aiden King, but I mean, looking at his numbers, I mean, he looks like he's really hard to hit.
Well, he turned in a pretty okay performance. Let me pull it up against again, Aiden only 83 pitches, 4 earned. His problem, Mo, those earned run came by walk. He was a little outside of his norm with being a little bit wild. But he has proven to, over the course of his career at Florida, to be a reliable arm. I'm looking at his numbers right now. He went 6 shutout against South Carolina. They lost a High Point, and he got roughed around, but his defense let him down badly. He gave up 5 runs in that game, 0 earned. And he only lasted 3 innings. He had a short stint against Miami in a win, and then pitched well to start the year against UAB and Kennesaw. Both UAB's not particularly good. Kennesaw has been up and down. It's a pretty decent program over the years. So he didn't give up an earned run until that Alabama series. But again, defense let him down pretty significantly against High Point. So he will be a formidable opponent against Hunter, and Hunter's going to have to keep the ball down. He's going to have to not leave things up over the plate, especially to left-handed batters, because if the wind's blowing like it often does this time of year at Baum, that left field porch is going to be pretty short.
Absolutely. We talked about Fisher a little bit, and we have TBD on both these pitchers. I guess both. It's really going to depend, probably with both of them, on what happens Friday and Saturday, right? I mean, if we win Friday and Saturday, I could easily see Fisher, hopping up back out there on the mound.
Oh yeah,
but if Florida loses,
you put TBD as because Dave hasn't fully announced it yet what the rotation is going to look like. But I mean, it is almost certainly going to be Fisher this week. But I do think, to your point, like depending how the weekend goes, it may be Fisher is in as just as an opener, and he's only going to get 2 innings, and then it's Johnny Holstaff the rest of the way. Well,
and equally on the other side, what happens if Florida drops Friday and Saturday? Will we see Walls? Will we see someone else? Or will we see Walls for an inning or 2?
Walls he's been their starter every Sunday. He didn't throw a ton of pitches, and that may be part of his issue. Is he's not out there for a long time. I was looking at his numbers. He threw 66 pitches against Bama on Sunday in that loss. He threw 78 against South Carolina in a game that he did not get. I guess maybe they gave him as a scorer's decision to win, but he by the numbers should not have. But he's been good. He was the only winning pitcher against High Point. He's just not great. His numbers are not overwhelming. I mean, you can look here. He's got a sub 9 Ks per game number. His WHIP is pretty high, especially for an SEC starter. So you know, no matter what happens this weekend, if Cooper starts for them on Sunday, we're going to see somebody else by the fourth and fifth inning for sure.
Well, who will we? I mean, Florida's offense. Who's their main guys? Who we really need to look out for?
Well, I'm looking at a couple of their numbers earlier today. I'm sorry, I just lost it off of my screen. But they have not been super productive this year as a team. It's actually kind of like we were talking about with South Carolina last week, and then talking about for Arkansas. It's been a little bit feast or famine. You've got Brendan Lawson, no, not Brayden. Brendan Lawson is kind of he's their bell cow. He's a near 400 hitter. He's got 10 home runs on the year. He's gonna, yeah. I mean, he is and he's also a stolen base threat. He's 6 out of 7 on the year. So he is. He's not to be trifled with. But I think you look at digging a couple of these other numbers. I mean, they've got a couple of others, but that he is by far their leading home run hitter. He's got 10, and then the next Blake Sir has got 4, and then you've got Ethan Sherwick and Cash Strayer both with 3, and those are all in 70 or more at bats. So these are regulars. But they do have better, good batting average guys. They get on base. They're just, as a team, they're just not scoring a lot. I mean, you look at their, they scored 11 runs over the weekend against Alabama. Like, this is just not a team, a prolific offensive team. They put up 10 against Stetson, who we did too. We also lost 2 of those games, so we're kind of hit and miss. Like, Florida looks a lot like Arkansas, frankly. Arkansas has been doing the work and grinding out wins, whereas Florida has let them slide.
Well, another important weekend because you play teams that are middle or bottom half. It's wild. Florida was ranked, and here I'm calling them a middle of the pack.
Yeah. I mean, they got kicked out this week, but they've been ranked all year.
That.
Yeah.
But it's home. You need to win the series.
Well, and beyond that, you got to make hay when the schedule gives you a break.
Right.
And the schedule is giving the Hogs a break right now. Stealing Sunday or the second half of the doubleheader on Saturday against Mississippi State was huge. It sets you up because now I got 2 out of 3 on the road against Carolina. Happy to get those. Really need to take 2 out of 3 this week because we're at Auburn, at Bama, then Georgia over the next 3 weekends.
Yeah, that's tough.
And that's a tough road to hoe because right now Georgia's ranked 4th, Auburn is ranked 6th, and Bama is back in after that sweep at 22 in Baseball America poll. Like, we got 3 ranked opponents coming up the next 3 weekends. 2 of them are going to be outside of Arkansas.
Well, you feel similar to what you did last week. If we pull off the big matchup on Friday, then it's almost a guaranteed 2 out of 3 or a sweep.
I wouldn't go that far. I think I do think that similarly to I said last week that I thought that a sweep was in the cards because I didn't think South Carolina's pitching could hold up, and it ends up they were able to stitch together a good performance on Sunday with some guys who hadn't really been showing it all year. Which just shows the talent that's within the conference. I think Friday is, again, Gabe. It has to be Gabe. And the offense has got to grind out at bats against Peterson, make him throw pitches. He's obviously shown that he can lose the strike zone. But he's an incredibly talented young man, and I expect that's going to be a coin toss. You give Hogs the advantages because it's at home. But that's going to be another pitching battle of titans, and Saturday looks like it's gonna be the same, Chris, between both of those cats on Saturday. So given the struggles that we've seen out of Fish the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks now, not as confident in our Sunday starters right now. But Dave and Coach Hobbs have really shown, obviously demonstrated over the years together, a really strong ability to manage that bullpen. And I think that's what we'll see over the weekend is if Gabe's attacking and he's not nibbling as he can do sometimes, and he's really going after batters, not being afraid of the solo home run. I'd rather a solo home run than a walk.
Sure.
If he can keep that mentality and go get guys, then I like the chances on Friday. Saturday's a coin toss between two stellar guys. Really both days are. You give Arkansas a slight edge and thinking about taking 2 out of 3 just because it's at home. But like most weekends, I expect Dave to sell out to win on Friday. Just absolutely everything we can do to win Friday, and then let the rest of the weekend take care of itself.
Well, who do you think? Who do you think we'll see start tomorrow against the Bears?
Yeah, I don't know that they've announced it yet. It may be DeCramer or Peyton Lee, somebody like that. Another kind of they're starting to see the guys get grouped into who's going to be midweek. He's not going to throw anybody tomorrow that they might want to throw on Friday.
Sure.
So T, maybe if things are tight, he's kind of a guy who's proven he can throw twice a week. But really, you like him to come in as an option, especially after Dietz on Saturday. Get that power right-handed arm coming in, if need be, because Steele. Well, I'm sure Steele's going to want to get back out there after giving up his first runs of the year. But you might see Teague in that position a little bit on Saturdays, again, depending on how the game goes.
Mm-hmm. Well, great weekend, home series, beautiful weather. Are you going to be able to make it out for a few games?
Yeah, I expect to be out there once or twice at least. Expect that we'll have a good, 30, 35,000 people over the weekend for the series, as long as the weather holds. And this is our last SEC bit for a couple of weeks, so I think folks will want to go take advantage.
Well, Brett, again, man, another great episode. Appreciate you hopping on, taking the time, and go Hogs.
Go Hogs. Let's get back together next week and hopefully talk about another series win.
That would be fantastic. All right, man. Have a good week.
All right. See you.